Hi, I'm Diana Montford, born male, became female. I am transgender. Yes, I admit it. I shot it from the rooftops. But anyway, this is part 2 of my interview with the great Jeff Copeland, who co-wrote Holly Woodlawn, the transgender Warhol superstar Holly Woodlawn's autobiography, and then wrote a second book about Holly called Love You Madly, Holly Woodlawn. I don't know if Low Life in High Heels, I believe, is out of print, which it should not be, because it's one of the great books in the transgender canon, along with Second Serve by Renee Richards and the Christine Jorgensen autobiography, which I believe is also out of print. They're all out of print, which shows you how the world feels about transgender folk. Holly was a fascinating human being and a very brave person. She had a very difficult and painful life and made light of it and was a lot of fun in many ways. So tell us more about you, Holly, Hollywood, and all sorts of things.
I loved Holly. I think she was a wonderful, endearing person when we were really good friends and we were working on A Low Life in High Heels. But today I look back at Holly and I think she really is a testament to why DEI initiatives are so important. When you grow up feeling like you don't fit in, you're different, you're born different, the world is not kind. Holly, at the age of 15, ran away from Miami, Florida to New York City and hit the streets and survived as a child prostitute. I think how would Holly's life have been different if she was encouraged to be her true authentic self and express her creativity? How would her life have been different if she was nurtured?
Yes, but that was very difficult in her time. Candy
Like,
Darling, as you know, also had a very difficult time.
oh,
I was
yes.
blessed. I had a very hyper supportive family, and I never had to run away or anything. So I was very lucky. But many people were not. I'm younger than Holly and Candy by about 10 years. But, I come from a progressive family of outsiders. So my grandfather was an ex-Catholic priest who became a civil liberties lawyer and a politician in Spain. My grandmother was a first-wave feminist, votes for women. My mother was an actress at 15. So when that was considered like, gee, I think I'd like to be a prostitute, that was outrageous. But she did it because she wanted to. So, I mean, I come from a long line of very supportive outsiders.
How was your education, though, in the public
Oh,
school system?
well, what happened was when I was 15, my mother died of cancer. I was sent to Madrid with my grandmother. My grandmother lived with us, my maternal grandmother, and she was going anyway. And, well, my father first tried to give me away to his brother, but he had teenagers. He didn't want me. Then he tried to give me away to his sister in Baltimore, but I was born in New York and we lived in New York. But she didn't want me because she had teenagers. Luckily, my grandmother, who was also my godmother, did want me. My father wanted to play with his young girlfriend, who later became his wife, who later left him 20 years later to become a Carmelite nun in Morristown, New Jersey. You cannot make this up. And so I spent 2 years in Madrid. Luckily, my grandmother had had a school for young women when she was young, before she married my grandfather. So I had a live-in high school teacher. So when people hear, you quit high school at 15, well, there are reasons. In Spain at that time, you graduated from high school at 16, so it wasn't so terrible.
Right.
And I was bilingual and from New York. And I had a live-in high school teacher, my grandmother, and turn of the 20th century teaching was infinitely more rigorous than mid-20th century teaching. So I learned a lot that people were not learning when I was a child and a young person.
Right.
I learned it
You
from my grandmother.
you were
So
very lucky.
I was blessed. I have good
Yeah.
karma when it comes to family, I must
Yeah.
say. I would go, when I got back from Spain at 17, in 73, I would go to Max's Kansas City, the watering hole for all strange folk,
Yeah.
and Les Jardins, which was the precursor to, it was a disco, the precursor to Studio 54. It was in the basement of a place called the McAlpin Hotel. And it was I was very young, but I looked older
Ah,
because, I had traveled, I wore a ton of makeup, and I seemed about 25, even though I was like 17. So no one ever thought anything of it, and no one checked IDs when you went into a club in those days.
when did you decide to make your transition?
Well, I was like 3,
Oh,
but I started transitioning at 15 in Madrid, Spain, and then when I was 19, in 1975, I went to Dr. Harry Benjamin and started hormone therapy, which I've been on now for 50 years.
so basically, I mean, you and Holly kind of went through the same, Holly,
No, look, I don't want to trash Holly.
but
I
as
was
far
not
as
a
like,
prostitute. I was not
no,
a drunk. I
but
was
at the
not a
age of
heroin addict.
15, at the age of 15 is when you made your choice that you
I
wanted
didn't
to,
have much of a choice since my father was busy with his whore and wanted to get rid of me.
oh,
So it wasn't that I chose it. It was that my father wanted to get rid of me because this woman had been his girlfriend while he was married to my mother. And he had briefly left us. And then he ran out of money and he came back because my mother was the money person in my family. So it wasn't that I chose to go to Spain at 15, it was that I had no choice. He had no problem with my being trans, but he had the old time male idea that I'm the man, I'm the father, and I say this. And they all bowed down, which
yeah,
was typical of men of his generation. He
yeah.
was born in 1917 to a working class family in Baltimore. My mother married him in 1944 when she was 17 and he was 26. But she
Hmm.
was an actress. And when she segued from being an actress to being a writer, when she was about 27, I was born during her gap year between acting and writing.
What
She
did
was a
she
very
write?
successful. She had an etiquette column and a beauty column for UPI, United Press International. She translated all of Erskine Johnson's dispatches from Hollywood into the Spanish for the Spanish-speaking world. Erskine Johnson was a movie columnist of the 50s. Then she segued into being a writer with 20th Century Fox Movie Tone here in New York. She wrote documentaries and newsreels. Does anyone remember newsreels? And she did that, and she was quite brilliant. And not only did she make a lot of money from her writing, she was a clever investor. My father was smart as far as it went, but she was brilliant. And she gave us a very nice life. Penniless refugee from the Spanish Civil War. And by 30, she was rolling in it. Thank you, God.
That I love that.
And she was a babe. She was gorgeous. She looked like Joan Collins. But let's talk about you.
Well, let's see. What should we talk about?
All right, Holly.
Holly.
Holly had a terrible time in your book, both your books. But in Low Life and High Heels, you mentioned that, or she mentions that via you, that no one understood that she was transgender and that it did take great courage for her to go with her friend from Florida to New York. They got stranded in the middle of nowhere because
Right,
they didn't have enough money to get to New York.
right.
I believe they hitchhiked.
Yeah, they
The
wound
rest
up
is
in I think New Brunswick, Georgia. That's where the bus ticket ran out in Georgia.
mhm.
And then they started hitching and it was a bit of a disaster. Yeah. Because they got caught in a thunderstorm, and it was that night in a motel in Georgia when Holly plucked her eyebrows, shaved her legs.
Well, she swore that she was hit by lightning and that, in effect, made her Holly Woodlawn. That's the implication.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is. Uh, you
I
know,
think that is a fun legend and myth. I think, yes, there was lightning, and it did strike. From what I understand, it struck a soda machine that was close by. And because that was so traumatic, the owner of the motel let Holly and her friend Russell stay there for free because they didn't have enough money to, you know.
naturally, yes.
Right. So the lightning was real, but it
Well,
didn't
Holly did
actually
things
hit
I would never
Holly.
do. She pawned her mother's
Oh,
aquamarine bracelet to get the bus ticket. I would die before I would do something like that. I wouldn't do that.
I
That's
wouldn't
when
do that
she and I were
either.
cut from very different cloth.
I was horrified when I realize that Holly stole from her parents. I didn't, from her
Or stole
mother.
from anyone, for
Yeah,
God's sake.
I know. I know. She did. Um, yeah, there was a loose screw there when it came to
Moral
that.
compass.
Yeah. 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 It's funny because Holly was a compassionate person. Holly had a good heart,
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
you know.
And she was a very compassionate, empathic human being.
Yeah. But there was the other side as well that would shift into survival mode. And if she needed that aquamarine bracelet to get where she wanted to go, she was
Well,
going to
take
take
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Now, see, I would have got a job at the Dairy Queen and worked there for 6 months.
hello, exactly. Exactly. That's what most of us would do.
Yeah.
You know, I paid for acting class by selling cosmetics in department stores.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we do. We don't steal and, she did what she had to do and she did what she thought was right at the time. And
Right.
she didn't have a lot of options because an effeminate boy in those days was not going to be hired by many people, in
Right.
Florida.
That's correct. Yeah. He would have been treated like, he would have been a pariah. I mean, I think about Holly. I think about the early days when he was living on the, she was living on the streets and living with crazy Miss Lopez. That was a group of, you know, that was one of my favorite parts of the book of a low
Was
life. And
yes, Miss Lopez was. Is she the one who was possessed by a spirit
she
and
was,
would?
yeah, she'd go woo woo. I mean, it was so much fun writing about all that crazy, colorful, fun stuff. All these little street urchins trying to,
She did something else that I'm not too fond of.
mm,
Her common law husband was a pressman, I believe, at the New York Times during the nighttime shift.
yes,
He saved and he scrimped to get her sex reassignment surgery. She decided she didn't want it after going to Johns Hopkins, and she blithely spent it on clothes and a good time. Not nice, Holly.
I know. I know. You have to wonder, like, what the hell was she thinking? Well, honestly, I mean, her husband, uh, what was he thinking? I mean, they really weren't legally married, but they were together.
Well, they
And
couldn't be legally married in those days, yeah.
right, but I would have thought that if you're going to give someone $10,000 for sex reassignment surgery, wouldn't you kind
Especially
of,
knowing her the way he did.
right,
She
wouldn't you
liked to
kind of be
spend money.
involved with the planning, like,
Yes,
okay,
and go
go
with
go
her,
with
maybe.
her to the doctor? I
Use your
would have.
sick days, your vacation days. They had them even then.
Yeah,
You know, this isn't a new invention. You could go on vacation time.
yeah. So, Holly shows up and finds out that she can't get that surgery right away. She's gotta go through a year of therapy and analysis, and she said, fuck it, and went to Saks Fifth Avenue.
I'm sorry, I find her very difficult to like at times.
Worked on a screenplay adaptation of A Low Life in High Heels with a wonderful director named Rose Trichet. And one of the challenges when we boiled that book down to a screenplay was trying to find the redeeming qualities. What's going to, it was hard. We had
Well,
to,
she wasn't bad. She was thoughtless. She
yeah,
was not stupid, but she wasn't malevolent. She just thought, well, okay, so I'll go shopping, you know.
yeah, yeah. And then, of course, she got kicked out of the
I wonder
house.
why. Yeah.
Right. Now, I can't remember where she went, but then that led to her getting
In your
involved with
book,
the,
you say she wound up in a small room in a disreputable hotel with a bunch of other street ladies, street transgender ladies, and that they all took care of one another. Holly she wasn't bad, she was just thoughtless.
yeah, yeah. She was, I, I mean, she was
Maybe
something else.
delayed emotional maturity,
What
like
was
when
that?
she pretended to be the French diplomat's wife. I mean, you can't live your life like this.
No, now she was reckless. Holly was reckless and um almost carefree and like you say, thoughtless. And it was all about there was those early days when she was in her 20s, and it was all about partying nonstop and having fun and being fabulous, whatever that is. I remember I had a nice chat with the producer of Scarecrow in a Garden of Cucumbers.
Yeah. I
And
think there's only one print left of that on Earth or something.
well, you know what? It just came out. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, they've re-released it.
Oh,
They
good.
they restored it. The Academy restored it, and it's come out on DVD. And this is a crazy, crazy movie.
Richard Nixon is a lesbian. I didn't know that.
There are some really fun moments in it, but I couldn't figure out the story really. I mean,
Well,
this
that
is
was the
what it,
fashion in those days. That meant that it was hip and trendy and groovy.
right, right.
Sound as though I'm trashing Holly, and I'm not.
No, you're not trashing her. We're just being honest. She was irresponsible.
Yeah, that's the perfect word for her. Irresponsible. Not evil, just irresponsible.
Right.
Like a child.
Well, you know what? You bring up an interesting like a child. I have discussed this with Teresa Conboy many, many times, where we think Holly suffered from a form of arrested development.
I agree.
You
I
know?
agree. She was very much like a teenage boy in some ways.
Yeah.
In spite of being on femme, screaming, "A free pussy." This is a strange thing to scream out in a nightclub, as you can imagine.
It's not the most dignified way to behave.
Oh. But nobody ever kicked her out, so it was
Yeah.
fine, you know.
When I was hanging out with Holly, when this is back to the Las Palmas apartments, and it was like 1990. This is before
Can you get
um
her that apartment?
yes. And that took some fancy
I read
footwork.
in your book, and this landlord expected a bombshell, and instead he got a weird Puerto Rican guy.
I think the book is a comedy of errors.
You've done it. You've achieved immortality with the lowlife in high heels. They will remember you. You peaked early, but you peaked. Most people don't.
Well, look, I'm very grateful for what Holly Woodlawn did for me.
And
Seriously.
what you did for her.
Well, I did do a lot. I mean, look, I will say
You
everything
got
that
her
I
an
got,
apartment, you got her a job, you gave her a career renaissance. I'd say you did a lot.
everything that I got from Holly was hard earned. Nothing was handed to me for free, you know?
I believe you.
Yeah. So, which made it very painful for me when I was eventually just thrown under the bus and tossed aside.
Love you madly that if it had been with or by you, if it had been Hollywood Lawn and Jeff Copeland as opposed to with Jeff Copeland or something like that, you would have had a much stronger legal position had you chosen to sue.
Well, no, I mean, I think what regarding the with and the and, I chose the with, okay, because I felt like it elevated Holly. I wanted it to look like Holly was more involved in the telling of her
That was the
story than
difference
she.
between you and Holly. Holly elevated Holly. You elevated Holly.
Yeah,
If
I
you had
really
been Holly, you would have been out for numero uno, which
right.
she was. You
Now,
weren't. Maybe you should have been.
I'll go for a with, but on that copyright, I need an and. That's what really mattered.
And she tried to talk you out of that, I believe.
No, she agreed to it. She was very
Okay.
supportive of that, you know. But you see, this was before the book was published, okay? And when it got published, and I guess it had been out for about a year when the film rights interest in the film rights started to happen.
Okay, if you had one thing to say about Holly and you, about your relationship, before we sign off on this episode, what would it be?
I would say in one word, it was magical. My relationship with Holly before A Low Life in High Heels became a book, before we hit the big time, it was wonderful.
In some ways, Love You Madly has more real depth and facts about Holly than her own Auntie Mame-like reworking of her life in A Low Life in High Heels. Because it shows the grit and the poverty and the desperation. And it certainly shows the desperation that people in show business feel when they cannot get a break, no matter what they do, no matter what they try. I don't mean her, I mean you. And finally you hit it, but a lot of people don't, you know?
Well, it had to be different from A Low Life in High Heels.
My guest has been Jeff Copeland, author of A Low Life in High Heels, the autobiography of Holly Woodlawn, and Love You Madly, Holly Woodlawn, his follow-up book detailing his relationship with Holly Woodlawn, who was a transgender Warhol superstar. We have part 3 coming up next time, so hang in there, watch us next time, and we will wrap up all the loose threads and everything, and we'll talk all about, you know, what Jeff has been doing since then, his new writing projects. I believe you have some in the pipeline. Anyway, I will see you next time. I love you. Even if no one else loves you, I love you. And Jeff loves you. We both love you. See you next time.